Everybody, and welcome to Artisan Mentoring, where we talk about all things piano craft. My name is David, and we teach all week long, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and we do stuff like this, where we get to break apart pianos and talk about what's wrong with it. And today we had a lot of things wrong with my beautiful, beautiful Samick Grand purchase. This is a gorgeous instrument. I actually don't even know what model I got. Oh yeah, SG 140. And so this is like 4 foot nothing grand piano. And it sounds. What do you think? What do you think?
Sounds like a piano.
It sounds like a piano. It sounds like a piano just after Victor tuned it. I'm joking. I'm playing. No, this has not been tuned. It's just arrived this week. And Samicks are unique. And I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about what I talk about with customers that own these instruments. So you have different price points for different pianos. And there's about 4 or 5 of the major kind of levels. A lot of people think that Steinway is at the top, the pinnacle level, and that's just not the case. At the upper echelon of pianos, you have, as far as price point and everything, you have your Faziolis, your Bechsteins, your Bösendorfers, and these are going to be very high price point pianos, $200K. And so they're considered in the world of pianos at that very highest level. The level below that is where you have more of your Steinways, your Schimmels, your Mason and Hamlins, excuse me, your Estonias, things of that nature. Below that, you're going to have your Kawais, your Yamaha pianos. And then the 4th level down, you're going to have something more like this, which is going to be your young Changs, your Samicks, your Pearl Rivers, things of that nature. Stacy, am I on point here? As a retailer, you've worked in retail for piano sales for a dozen years. Am I spouting heresy here?
No, you're pretty good. You have your iconic ones, like the top 5 in the world, right? Bechstein, Bösendorfer, Fazioli, Steinway, those. And then it kind of goes down from there. Then you have like your professional, you have your consumer ones. And then down at the bottom, you get your like more economy,
Yeah.
So like with the performance, with the iconic ones, the whole point is don't spare any expense, like just spend whatever you need to do to make the best quality piano in the world, right? And then middle is more bang for your buck, right? Let's try to make the price as good as we can, but make the the quality. Yeah. That's your mid. And then your economy is like, we still want a piano that functions, but let's make it as inexpensive as we possibly can. And there's a niche for all of those. I feel like with pianos, like that fits some people. It does. Like they all fit someone, or they wouldn't keep making them all. So every store you go to, by the way, will always have a 3-tier system. They will always have their professional brand, their mid-range, and then their economy. You'll see that everywhere. You'll notice that if you watch for it.
So I find it interesting that Steinway is kind of 2 levels. The German ones versus the New York ones are kind of at 2 levels.
Yes, and there's actually a 3rd level, which is actually there's a 4th level. There's your Boston, and then there's their Essex, which are both created by Steinway. But yeah, you're right. Because you're right that the Hamburgs are in that other category. I would say that they dabble in to that upper echelon of the Bösendorfer stone.
I would say definitely the German ones, even if they're not quite at the high end like Bechstein or Fazioli, they're nearer to that than they are to the New York Steinways.
And even Hawaii and Yamaha have a tier system, right? They have like your Yamaha C series and your G series, and and you have your Yamaha P's, and like there's a tier system for Kauai too. So that's something to watch for as well.
Yeah. Some of the things, just so you know, that manufacturers will do in this very kind of ultra kind of economy piano is they will use fairly new woods. So as you get more into the more and more expensive pianos, you're getting into more kiln dried, aged woods that are seasoned and that they're not going to kind of go crazy with the weather. And so the Samicks, the young Chang pianos, part of the reason they're more susceptible to the weather change is because they have new growth wood, things that are not aged. And so that's where we're going to kind of see some of the issues with this piano. Now, these are fixable, but literally every Samick piano that I come to, I'm going to look for these couple of things right away. To give you a point of reference, this is around a $5,000 to $6,000 piano, that kind of basic Samick grand, and kind of gives you some perspective there. But let's go ahead and kind of break open this piano. I've already removed the fall board and the key slip, and usually I'm taking a couple minutes to go ahead and look at the piano before I have the customer come in and take a look with me. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I press these down on the left and right hand side and just yank it as hard as I could out. That's a little humor there. That's not what I'm going to do. Just so you know, some people will reach into the stack brackets and pull, and that's a good way of doing it. Other people will just kind of pinch the very corners, just making sure not to touch the first and last keys as you pull it out. And this is the point where I'm just going to go ahead and look at a couple things. The first thing that I do right off the bat is I look for the amount of wear on the hammers. These are very minimal, very, very little wear, which is cool. The second thing that I'm going to do is listen to the rebounding of the hammers, because this has a hammer rest rail, and 9 times out of 10, it's loose. And sure enough, in this case, the little screws have loosened, and so that's usually a source for a nice sound. And what I'm talking about right there is these screws right here. They tend to be loose over time. So I've seen that the hammers are in pretty good shape. Now I kind of want to go ahead and see, ooh, that's nice. Can everybody see that? So we got some friction in the hammer flanges, which is pretty par for the course. You can see how stiff they are. So I like this to swing here in the Northwest 7 to 9 times. I usually like them to be a little bit faster, so I like this to swing about 9 times. 1, 2, 2.5. So that's nice. Victor, what do you shoot for over in Texas?
Uprights, I go pretty low. It's 5 and grands 7.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that kind of differs from region to region depending on everything. But definitely once we're at 2.5, 3, I'm kind of like, all right, there's definitely some stuff we have to check. Now that I know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, I want this to swing around 9 times for where I'm at. I just like the way that feels. What would be another thing that you would check, given the fact that these hammer flanges are this tight? What would be another pinning issue that you'd want to check for? Any guesses? The next one that I'm always going to check for after I've made note that this needs to be repinned is I'm always going to check the jacks. The jacks on these pianos are notorious, absolutely notorious for needing to be repinned. So, and that's simply, I'm just going to go through and flick each one to see if they're kind of making a flick and flicking back. And I can feel right away, some of them are, but a handful aren't. So what I would recommend for this customer is having them come in. I would recommend repinning some miscellaneous jack flanges, and then repinning the entire hammer flanges, and then kind of do some other servicing work. This is a great visual for you to show your customer because it's a very easy thing for them to see. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's really pretty stiff. And what you do, and this is what I do, is my protocol is, hey, Mrs. Smith, can you come in here really quick? Kind of wanted to show you kind of what's going on with your piano. So usually before I pull it out, I'm actually playing the instrument, and you obviously can't feel it like I can, but it feels kind of stiff. Feels like there's friction somewhere. So what I'm going to tell the customer is, come on in here. What I noticed right away is that in playing your piano, it feels a little difficult to play, a little stiff. And I went and tried a couple of the hammers, and sure enough, there's some friction in this joint right here. We want this to swing between 9 and 11 times, and this is swinging 1, 2, about 2.5. So there's a lot of friction in there, and to fix that is pretty invasive. What we have to do is pretty intense. We're going to need to have the action for a couple days, and we're going to need to pop each one of these pins out that hold these two sections together, and then kind of custom fit them so that they work properly. Usually at this time, they're like, good grief, how much is this going to cost? And so depending on your rate, our rate for our shop work is about $150 an hour. What we would include in this is a full repinning of the hammer flanges, some burning and traveling, and then the reinstallation. And so we would quote around $1,200 for this service. And that would include the delivery and reinstallation, and then moving the parts. And they're going to be able to decide at this point whether they want to do that or not. I will have already decided how many of these jacks are in need of pinning. If it's like a dozen or less, I'm usually just kind of including those in with the whole job, and I'll let them know. I'm also letting the customer know that at the time that we have this action in the shop, I'm going to tighten all the action screws as well as do some lubrication of the parts, because that's super easy to do while you have it at the office, or excuse me, the shop. Questions for me about this? I know it's just kind of like blasted you all with a lot of stuff.
If it's not that bad, say it's already swinging 5 to 7 times, would you try lubricating the flanges and give them that option? We can try lubricating them for a fraction of the price.
Yeah, I usually, if it's at 7, I'm usually not even recommending anything for them. I'm just like, you know what, it might be seasonal. It's usually, if it's this bad, that I'm really recommending it 3 to 4. And then anything over that, I think that Jacob said that he's done more of that lubricating, with ProTech lube. I've not done a lot of that, so I don't know the long term, like how good it is long term. And so I just don't know how viable that is for a long-term solution. And that would be my only concern with it. And usually the customers are like, when a customer has a grand piano, there's several things at play. One is a lot of times they have a player in the house that needs more of a performance instrument, or it's kind of a status symbol. It's one of the two. It's just like, I have a big house, I want a grand piano in it. Either way, they usually feel like this is something that they want to invest money into, more so, I have found, than the upright pianos. Have you all seen that or noticed that out in the field?
That's true. Now that you say it, that's completely true.
Yeah, they've invested room and space in their home for something like this. They want it to usually be more than playable, easy to use, and then clean. They really usually want their grand pianos clean because it's such a statement piece.
Hey, David, when you're tightening up the rail screws, you were doing something to hear a rattle. Was that just playing the instrument and listening for the rattle?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna loosen these screws. and see if we can pick up the sound that it makes. So I'm just loosening, let's see here. Yeah, so there's usually, I don't know, about 10 or so, 8 to 10 of these little kind of nuts right here. And can you hear that?
Yeah, we can hear that.
Yeah, so that's something that you will hear when the hammers go and rebound. So and a lot of times they'll be like, what's that sound? I don't remember it ever, it's a loud and clanky sound. And 9 times out of 10, that it's that right there.
Yeah, that'd be
And another thing that I run into is actually right here. It's in the key upstop rails. And what can happen with these key upstop rails is there's usually 2 nuts, one at the bottom and then one at the top that kind of cinch down together. And 9 times out of 10, when there's an issue, that lower one has loosened and traveled downwards. And it's a lot of times holding up these 2 notes ever so slightly. And so that's a good, that's something to kind of keep in mind as well when you're pulling apart these grand actions, especially with the more entry-level grand pianos like this. I don't know if it's the fact that the wood swells and contracts quite a bit with these pianos, if that's the reason that these become loose, and then they just kind of rattle their way to become more and more loose. But it just seems to happen pretty frequently. So to be honest, with these Samick pianos, if it hasn't had any work done to it, for us, it's a good day or 2 of work that these pianos could use before they become, really pretty good. So we'll clean the piano, we'll lubricate everything, do some calibration, do some repinning, and then they're really, pretty nice, especially if you go ahead and voice them down. I mean, this piano, we're going to do that to this one. But this one is, there is just no bass in this. I mean, it's the equivalent of a spinet, right? It's really what it is. And so we're going to kind of voice this to make it sound really pretty cool. But before we do that, we're going to lubricate everything. We're going to do some regulation. This is our guinea pig. I mean, this is, I think, Stacy, didn't you say we named it something?
Yeah, they called it Sammy for Samick. So Sammy the Franken-Samick, because they're going to do a lot of fun things. It'll be like a Frankenstein piano.
Yes.
I guess. We're going to do a lot.
Sammy.
Yeah.
We're going to do a lot with this, including some tuning, kind of showing you kind of protocols, techniques, and stuff like that. But I think that the first thing that I'm going to be doing, it's probably going to be next week, is starting to kind of do some of the things that I guess I would do if it was my piano. And since it's my piano, I'm going to do it. But this is going to be a good guinea pig one. So if you guys have recommendations of like, hey, I would love, now that we have a grand piano in here, this is what I would like to see. Let's start writing them down, because this is literally what it's here for, is for you all and for the training purposes. 9 out of 10 times when I'm recommending this $1,000 or $1,500 work, they're usually like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do it. I've never had this kind of work done to it. It's already in their home. And a lot of times if you include a cleaning in it, that really goes a long way as well. Yeah. If you ever wanted one of these, though, you're going to find them on sale locally. There's a lot of them out there. We picked this one up for like $1,000. And so it's something that you can get really pretty inexpensively. If this was at a store, this would sell for around $5,000. But usually you can get somebody that's like, hey, I just want it out of my house because I got a new couch. And that just seems to happen quite a bit. And so these are great practice pianos, especially for technicians, for us to kind of hone our skills. Because guess what? They don't hold tunes super great, so you're going to have a piano that you can tune over and over and over again. That's been my experience. We're also going to go over, I'll figure out how to do it, but we're going to go over like pedal stuff. Because a lot of people have questions like about the lyre and doing all that work.
That was going to be one of my asks, was because I'll need to go through and actually do some repairs on my chickering, because it has one of the rods that wants to fall out. So I got to evaluate that and try to figure out what's going on and get that fixed.
Pedal, Stacy and I literally were just talking about this with pedal issues. And that is, they can be something as simple as putting a little bit of grease and lubrication on it, or they could be something that's going to eat your lunch for 2 days. It's
true.
I can see Victor's just laughing because he's like, yes,
It's really, I've learned that if someone says my pedal's not working, to ask them to send pictures, because I've seen horrific pedal breakages that were not just like horrific. I'm like, what happened to this piano? I've seen that. Or they might just need to be rebushed, or they might just need to be lubricated. Oh, you just never know. So when I'm quoting that on the phone, I'm like, we just need to come see it. Unless they say squeaky pedal, then that one is pretty.
Yeah, that usually not too bad. Yeah, but this is very much par for the course. This is very much the piano that you will see in your home, in your customers' houses. This is, I think, from the 90s or early 2000s, or I'm guessing from the 90s. And it needs some cleaning work done. It needs some regulation work done. It definitely needs tuning. Usually this is a customer that, for whatever reason, has their piano tuned every 3 years or so. Or they forget to do it, and so getting them on a schedule is a good idea. It's kind of funny how we know the customers that buy these and what their life rhythms are. A lot of times also they have kids that are going into high school, so they bought this when the kids were more, a little bit younger. Then now they're going into high school, and so it's getting played less, and so it's kind of going away. So there's all those factors that usually happen. And so in this case, the kids are now out of the house, wants to downsize, and wanted to make sure that this piano was going to be used. And I'm like, it is going to be used a lot at our teaching studio. So just so go ahead.
How much do you evaluate? Because I knew when I got my chickering that the keys needed to be rebushed. How much do you evaluate, the bushings of the keys versus, the standard action stuff that we've been discussing?
That's a great question. I have found that people, I think they're kind of like cooks. I mean, sometimes we only cook the stuff we like to eat or we feel comfortable cooking. And so I think that with some technicians, they're like, I feel super ultra comfortable replacing key tops. And so 9 out of 10 people that they have, they're going to recommend key top replacement. And I think that as technicians get used to doing a certain job, we kind of get into the excitement of like, I know how to do this. I just figured this out. It makes a big difference. I'm going to recommend this on every service call. And that's fine. And that's kind of normal. I'm really excited about this idea of calibration and lubrication. So guess what? I'm recommending that everywhere. So that's kind of typical. But in answer to your question, I would say I don't recommend it enough, in part because I hate doing it. It's one of those jobs that for me, I got to the point where I was pretty quick at it back in the day. It would take me a couple hours. I could get done with the whole set, but it was like a grueling 2 hours. And a lot of times the customer didn't want to pay the $300 to $500 for that, and I couldn't charge more because the market wasn't, excited to pay that. And so I should recommend more, but I typically personally recommend other things over that. So for instance, if there is a lot of wobble in the keys, like the key bushings are kind of shot, usually the hammers are needing some work. Usually there's some regulation issues. Usually there's some other things that draw my attention more than the sloppiness of the keys. That's not to say that that's a good thing. I'm just saying, being honest, and that's kind of my protocol.
Right.
Yeah. So for
since
me,
I was doing a full refurbishment, I knew I was doing it anyway. But yours not being as old and also in relative good condition on the keys, because they're when you're wobbling those around, didn't look like there was a lot of
no,
play.
they're, if anything, they're a little, they're actually tight. Does anybody know if we can get that Pro Felt solution anywhere? Did somebody say
It's
that?
on Supply 88.
Perfect. So Supply 88.
I'll put a link.
Yeah, put a link in there, because the reality is with newer pianos like this, even if they were loose, I'm going to do a treatment on them over replacing the key bushings. And so if there's enough felt that's there that I think will reinvigorate, rehydrate, and seize up nicely, I'm going to do that Pro Felt treatment all day long. And that allows me to kind of do something like that and then work on other parts of the piano. And I'll charge $100 or $200 for that Pro Felt treatment. Maybe a little bit more if I have to ease quite a bit of things afterwards. But I think that Pro Felt is a brilliant solution. And to be honest, I wish I had some, because I'm working on another Bösendorfer, but the Bösendorfer before, they were pretty sloppy and we just didn't have any Pro Felt in stock. And so I wasn't able to do that treatment. And I had it in the shop. It would have been a perfect time, but I just didn't have it on hand. So having that kind of thing on hand that you can really wow the customer is cool. And Michael, that's one of those things that's a really cool, just value added. Doesn't take a lot of time, a couple drops, and it does make a big difference. And so that can be something that you just add some value when you're doing this much work. Because I mean, we're quoting $1,500 to $2,000 worth of work, and so doing some kind of fun, free things is always a cool thing. Another thing that I don't like is I feel like I'm having to push like crazy to get this this action in and out, and so definitely putting some Teflon powder in this key bed is going to be something that I'm going to want to do, as well as lubricate the just the different pressure points on the key bed and the key frame. And what I might do, this might be a fun one, is actually do the whole treatment and just kind of schedule the lives around that, saying, okay, I'm going to do the full-on lubrication treatment on this piano because it needs it. And so we're going to go through and literally in real time, this is how I'm doing it. This is the speed, and this is kind of how it looks. Might be worth doing it. Other questions about this beautiful Samick? I'm excited.
How much are you evaluating, the hinges of the lid and other case parts, with the fall board to be able to let the customer know?
That's a good question. So with this particular piano, this also has like this kind of lid. It has this little dowel thing on the side of the lid that kind of makes it so the lid stays secure. And a lot of times those are prone to, rattling. For me, I usually will hone in on what are the big issues with the piano that I would need to charge for. So for instance, if they're just like loose hinges, I'm going to quickly do that usually. If there's a broken hinge or something like that, then yeah, I'm going to fix that. And it kind of answered your question. I'm going to wobble the lid before I actually lift it up to make sure that the pins are inside, because I've done that before. I go to lift the lid and it shoots down because the hinge pins are non-existent. They're not even in there.
That's a good point. I haven't thought about that. That if you're doing evaluation before you start opening that it's, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so just kind of lift it and then just kind of rock it side to side to see if it slips out. Is a really quick, takes a couple seconds, and then no, it's secure. I'm going upwards with it. But yeah, I'm doing a quick evaluation. I want my evaluation to be within 5 to 10 minutes, and I know what this piano is all about. I know what it needs. I know what my top 5 things that I'm going to do to it are. To be honest, when you start to list every little thing, hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm noticing that the hinge screws are loose. I'm noticing I'm loosening it, and you're listing everything. A lot of times they just kind of get to the point where they're glazed over. And so you only have your customer for maybe 3 minutes, maybe. And so figure out what things are going to be something that's going to make the most amount of difference or are the most problematic right now. For this piano, it feels like playing a tank. It is just really heavy. And so for me, I'm going to recommend this and some cleaning and some kind of reconditioning. And just see if they want to do that. If they're like, no, I don't want to do that, then I'm probably going to recommend we at least do some calibration, some like lubrication of the parts to kind of maybe get the, lubricate the knuckles and just get some, friction out of this thing. But I found you have your customer attention for maybe 2 to 3 minutes before they're like, no, I'm gone. I'm into tax mode. I'm into picking up the kids. I'm into anything but this right now. Which is hard because I geek out to pianos. I want to talk about pianos.
How many times do you run into issues with grands like this lower end, or dampers? How many damper issues do you run into?
That's a really good point. I would say that 1 out of 5 can have these damper issues, and it's going to be damper issues that they're not coming down correctly. So basically, you'll get bleed through. And usually it's one of 2 things, and we'll go into that more. It's usually the guide rail bushing is too tight. So I'll show you that really quick. The guide rail bushing can swell up and contract and squeeze the damper wire. And so this is the guide rail right here, and it's bushed. And those bushings can seize up, making it so that these don't come up and down easily. And so a simple thing that you can do with that is remove the action of the piano and then go through and just kind of go to the levers and see if they're moving freely. You'll find out pretty quick if they're not moving freely, then you're like, okay, I have either friction here, or worst case scenario, you have friction in these lever flanges. And that is more of a bigger deal. There's 2 solutions. One is you can lubricate it with ProTech Lube, squirt some in there and try to get it so that it's working free, or you actually have to pull it out and repin these flanges. If it turns out that the friction is up here, you need to remove the damper wire and then ease that bushing. Typically what I do is I have kind of, I just use a capstan adjuster, that rat tail capstan adjuster that kind of gradually goes pointy, and I kind of put it in there, kind of stir it around a bit and just compress that felt. And I've had really great success with that. I've also made like brass burnishers that I put in like the key easing irons and I will go ahead and solder, basically kind of like iron that felt that way. But I would say that 1 out of 5 of these, for me, has that issue, and I'm always crossing my fingers that this isn't that one. Luckily, I haven't even tested that. I don't think this is one of those, just because the dampers are actually working really well with it. But yeah, that'll be something that we're going to want to test for as well.
Yeah, I worked on a Kimball the other day, same size, and there was clicking throughout the whole base, and I couldn't figure it out. But it was the where the damper wire goes into the kind of the bottom where it screws in. That was hitting the upstop rail. It was clicking against that every time it would return, and it took me forever to figure it out. I don't even know how I figured it out, but it was
What do you
hitting
mean?
that. So like where the damper goes into the block, and then you screw it in behind that right, that's right in front of the damper upstop rail, and so that was clicking the upstop rail every time it would return.
Why was it clicking the upstop rail?
It was so
Have
close.
You said that the space was super close?
Exactly. Yeah, it was so close. And when I would take the damper wire out, I could see, the wood bruises. It was black from, that friction point. And man, it was like the whole base section. So I had to take out every single base damper and sand it. At first, I was pulling each one off, but I was like, that's taking too long. So I was just sanding it, and it took like 4 or 5 hours. But that was a pain. That was a tough one.
Could you have, not to say you didn't do the right thing, I'm just curious. Yeah. Maybe I won't even tell you this, because like that would be like, oh shoot.
No.
Could you have just simply pulled them away from it?
Wait, can you move it a little bit to your left?
So what I'm saying is, you're talking that this underlever was touching this damper upstop rail, right?
Yes.
What would have happened if you would have just simply pulled it away from it, and then bent the wire down here, and then bent it back up at the top?
Oh, maybe. I guess I could have done that. I didn't think about bending them.
You can bend them, but you just have to make sure you do another bend at the top, because it's going to want to angle it over.
Yeah,
because you're changing the angle of where the wire goes into the flange, right? And so you're just changing the geometry.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have worked.
Yours was probably the longer, long-term solution. So, but we'll go with that.
Close. Yeah. The good thing it was at my church, so it was free.
Oh, that's nice. That was free.
I felt bad if that would have had been at a client's house, because that would have been a good payday.
Yeah, no kidding. In this case, it was just for tithing, so that's perfect.
Yeah, but it took me like at least 2 hours to figure out what the problem was at first.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, but I don't know why it was so close, because like on your model, it's like a good inch away. This was touching it.
It was a Hardman upright or a Grand?
Kimball Grand.
Kimball Grand. Oh, I think there's your answer.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that the grand pianos, I mean, it's funny because I think we have like nearly 200 videos and lessons teaching on the upright, but like we can do as many, if not way more, lessons and sessions on the grand. And that's what we're going to do. So we're probably going to go into some of the basics and the repairs, but I would say that the takeaway from this is figure out where the biggest issues are with the piano and try to figure those out really quickly and come up with some solutions, some proposals, and then remember, you only have minutes to convey it in a way that makes sense and that would be helpful for your customer before they're like, I'm out of here. And so presenting them with a couple different options. The biggest thing would be us reconditioning this, doing what we call our gold package, where we're repinning it, we're surfacing the hammers, and then spending a day cleaning and doing some regulation work. That would be like the best thing. Usually they're going to say, $2,500. That's half of what I spent on the piano. Totally understand. Well, what could we do instead? Well, what we could do is just simply repin this so that everything's moving freely. And while I have it, we can go ahead and tighten the action screws and lubricate it. That would be yeah, let's do that. Or no, still not. Okay, well, let's go ahead and just at least lubricate everything. We can do that while we're here, and it's just an extra X. And so presenting those three options is a good idea. Again, finding what the biggest issue is with the piano is always a good idea. A lot of times, I'm also going through and tuning the piano before I tell them what I recommend, because I do want to make sure that there's nothing crazy with the piano. Because I've done this before. Well, I bring the customer in way too early, and I'm like, they're like, yes, let's do that. And then I get into and I'm like, great, I'll go ahead and tune it right now, but the piano won't even hold tune. And there's so many other issues that then they're like, I'm like, oh, can you come back? And they're like, geez, all right, no, I don't want to do any of it. I'm just going to get a new piano. And I feel like I wasted their time. So typically, I'm not having the issue with these pianos being too loose. It's usually the opposite. They're a little bit snug with the tuning pins. Yeah.
Have you tried using Profelt on the hammer guide rail?
I haven't. I thought you were going to say in the tuning pins if they're tight. I'm like, where are we going with this?
Never.
No, I haven't. I haven't done that. I can imagine that being really good because I do come across, historic grands where they're just so floppy in there. There's just so much wobble. And I can imagine that being a great solution for it.
Yeah. I've done it before, like if the whole base section is sticking, I've got in Samick lube and just underneath spray the whole guide rail. And that's worked pretty well before.
To loosen everything up?
Yes. Yeah, like
Okay.
if all the dampers are sticking. But I know I have seen some people use Protect with a needle and go in. I know that works pretty well. That works well here because it's definitely a seasonal thing.
Okay, this is seasonal for you.
Yeah. I was just curious.
And Victor, you're using just water and a little bit of hand soap on the soundboards. Is that what you said, or just water?
I use 409.
You use 409 on the soundboard?
Yeah, it gives it a really good shine. Yeah, I know. I try to keep that secretive because some people are, you're using 409. Yeah, but I make sure there's no alcohol in anything that touches the soundboard. No alcohol, because you don't want to dry it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've used 409 for a long time and it works really well. But it doesn't clean. I use 409 because it cuts, so it can get rid of a lot of that dirt on there.
Okay, and what's your what do you dilute it down to?
Oh, I use it just like that. I use it straight.
No, you don't.
Yeah, just like the spray bottle of 409. I use the lemon scented one just so it smells good. But a lot of the pianos we clean, they're really dirty, and that's the only thing that works.
Okay.
Because I get a lot of like candle wax, syrup. Like we're joking around about. I get a lot of stuff like that, like really sticky things, and that's the only thing that can get it off. And it gives it a really good shine. It always comes out very shiny in the end.
All right, I'm gonna use your method on this one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call you back if I'm like, you just told me to put acid basically on this soundboard.
Yeah, I know a lot of people use baby wipes.
Don't they use 409 for like degreasing engines?
Yeah.
And like cleaning.
A brush or anything to scrub with the 409?
I use the Spurlock cleaning set. They go in between the strings and you turn them. And then I just spray the 409 on a towel, put it under the strings, and then push gently. If there's a spot that has something very stuck, then I push a little harder. But that works really well.
Do you also use it for plates, Victor?
Yes, but I do a test spot first always, though. Because I don't think I've ever had one that's reacted like bad where it's peel to finish, but sometimes it just won't work and I have to try something else. So I always try it in a spot first. But I know people use baby wipes for the soundboard because it's like gentle. But I don't want to be that guy. Like I don't know. I don't want to have pull out baby wipes during an appointment. Like yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Can't have that. Can't have that.
Yeah. Oh, that sweeper tool you were talking about once. It's on shaft now. Sweeper,
How much?
75.
Plus $200 for shipping?
Yeah, sounds right.
Probably.
Hey, Shaft, if you're watching, let's just lower the shipping rates a little bit, okay?
Yeah. And I order mutes, and it's like, yeah, $300. Like, where are they coming from? The moon?
I think I'm gonna get one of those sweeper things though. I like those, and that's half the price I've been able to find it. So that's a good deal.
Yeah, but I think I've mentioned this before, but when cleaning the soundboard, we always use a dust cloth or like a microfiber towel dry to pick up 99% of the dust and dirt, and then you go back with your wet, whatever 409 or whatever you're gonna use, because it's not fun getting like a wet rag and like dust on it or a big amount.
Okay.
That helps a lot.
What I think we're gonna do with the cleaning of this one, Victor, is that you're gonna go ahead and give me all the things that I need to get, and then I'll be your hands, and you give me some directions. We'll clean it in real time, and you're just gonna be
cool.
like, okay, that looks good. Let's move on to the bridges. Yeah. I think we should do that.
That'll be awesome. I just got a new cleaning box. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah. I'll see. Let me put a picture in the chat.
Okay.
I take a picture of it. So I use the Milwaukee pack-out system. I don't know if anybody's seen it.
Is that the ones where it has the layers to it? The stack? Can you hear him, Victor?
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I have a box that's just for cleaning stuff now. There we go. I put it in the chat. It's nice because I can click it onto the big box if I'm taking everything in, or if I just need the box, it can just go in.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm always intrigued about what people are doing for cleanings, just because there's a lot of stuff that like do's and don'ts, and there's a lot of theoretical things, but you, Victor, and Ramses are like out there using it and doing it. So I'm kind of like, all right, we've used the Mop and Glow, we've used the 409, we've diluted things, we've used Murphy's Oil Soap. But I do like the idea of simplifying things. And if you're saying that, no, you actually go straight on a rag with straight 409, which again, I think of that stuff like, I think of 409 as if you've ever seen the movie Aliens, whenever an alien gets wounded and it has that acid blood, I think of 409 as that. That's what I think of when I think of 409.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know, maybe because I used to detail cars, and so I've used a lot stronger degreasers where like it's peeled the skin off my hands. So to me, like I've used stuff that's insane, and 409 to me is like really gentle because I can get on my hands and nothing happens. So that's why I think 409 is actually quite gentle compared to other degreasers.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it's never ruined a plate or anything. The only way I've ruined a plate is scratching it with the soundboard steel that I was being careless. Yeah.
By the way, with those soundboard steels, I wrap them now in electrical tape.
Yep.
And that
or painter's tape. Yeah.
Or painter's tape. Yeah.
Yep. That's the way to go. Or I get the end, and then like on a concrete driveway, I scrape the end really hard so that it smooths them out. Or you can do it on a sander, like a belt sander too.
That makes sense. Yeah. All little tricks.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to be amazed at how many of these pianos you're going to find as you go out in the field more. This is going to be when somebody has a grand piano, you're usually going to be at about like this. And I debated on like what pianos to have in here for when we bring in more pianos to do the in-persons. Do we bring in the Yamahas? Do we bring in the Kawais? What do we do? And I'm like, the more we thought about it, it's like, this is real world. Like, this is what you're going to have to learn how to tune. I mean, Kawais, Yamahas, they tune so easy. This is what you're going to be working on. This is what you're going to have to battle. And they're worth it. You can do it. And you can make these things absolutely amazing. The hammers are typically rock hard, so when you go ahead and voice it, it can just sound amazing. So this is what we're going to be playing around with. And lucky for us, at $1,000 a pop, we can do what we want to them, and it's okay.
How often are you recommending new hammers get hung on pianos like this? Is it pretty rare?
Pretty rare, because I find that these pianos don't get played that much.
Oh, I see.
You know, I find that people like the idea of a grand piano, or when the kids start playing it, then the teacher comes in and is like, you need a different piano or a bigger grand. So I usually find that they're not that worn to warrant more than a hammer servicing. But that's just been my experience with them. Have you noticed something else?
No, that's definitely true. Yeah, I feel like when we're doing grand hammer hanging, it's like on very high end pianos. Not pianos like this. I guess you're right on that. Yeah, usually they have quite a bit of meat left. You can do a few filings.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is what you're going to experience. And I would rather, I mean, these are temperamental when it comes to weather changes and fluctuations, but these are actually a little bit easier to work in than, say, like Michael, your chickering. You know, the chickering with the historic instruments, there's another set of issues usually you have to deal with. There's really ultra worn parts a lot of times, and the wood can have deteriorated so much that, you know, when you go to ease key bushings, you go to ease it and then it kind of splinters out, or even in the removal of the key bushings, or so. There's different issues with something like this, but for me, they're a little bit easier to deal with, because at least you're not going to have the wood splintering out or not able to accept this or that. And these can be kind of fun to work on if your customers are willing to kind of let you play around with it. And Michaels, that's not to slam your chickering at all. I think it's a great piano for you to be working on, and I love chickerings. They just require a little bit different type of finessing and patience, I would say. Because the patience for something like this is going to be like, wait, last week it felt like this hammer was tight and now it's not. What's going on? And so, whereas with the chickerings and historic pianos, it's going to be like, I went to go and pop out this, you know, center pin, and the entire shoulder of the flange popped off because it's so dry and old. So, but no, I'm really excited to have a grand piano, because there's a lot of stuff that we need to go over, including tuning technique and everything like that for the grand piano. So that'll be one of the next ones. Anybody have a suggestion for Wednesdays? Anything you want to see? I'm kind of dying to do this 409 trick at some point, but go ahead. What?
Oh, I was gonna say maybe liar stuff. I remember when I started, like, since everything's upside down, it confused the heck out of me.
Say it one more time. I didn't. You cut out right there. Oh, the liar stuff.
Liar.
Yeah.
When I started, I was confused because everything was upside down, but it's the same as an upright, just upside down.
It is. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and break apart the liar box and show where we typically find the issues. And that's a good one. So we'll go ahead and we'll do grand liar repair for Wednesday. And then depending if I can get a good angle, I'm trying to figure out how I can go underneath the piano to talk about the trap work, because those need to be addressed as well. So we'll probably split that into 2 areas and talk about the lyre for this, and then maybe the trap work another day. How's that sound,
Yeah.
Stacy?
That sounds good.
Sounds
David-
great.
David and Stacy, do you guys mind if I talk to you off the record after this meeting?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Well, we'll see you Wednesday. We're going to do the lyre stuff, and the world's our oyster right here, because we got grand and upright, and this one is just due for a lot of work, and I'm really excited about actually the 409 stuff, so we'll do that. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.